Hi, this is Thomas Buckner inviting you to a concert I'll be giving at Roulette as part of the Interpretation Series, Thursday, May 5th at 8 o'clock. The concert will contain music by Bun Ching Lam, Kyle Hovatter, Michel Gentile, Karen Power, and Blue Jean Tyranny. These are all commissioned pieces, New York premieres, and several are world premieres. One of the best things about specializing in the performance of contemporary music is that you get to work with living composers. Blue Jean Tyranny and I have worked together since 1983 when I joined Robert Ashley's company. Blue had been a member of it for many years before that, starting with the famous Once group in Ann Arbor, Michigan. Blue is a phenomenal piano player and became a phenomenal composer with his own distinct voice, and Robert Ashley used his particular style of playing as a character in most of the operas that he wrote, and most of the ones that I performed with Bob, which we did for 31 years, so it's a long association. Equally, I've had an even longer association with Joseph Kubera, whom I first became aware of when we were both in California. Whenever I sing with a pianist, it's always Joe. And Joe will perform a solo piece of blues, and Joe and I will do a piece, both of which were written for the two of us.
I'll be playing a piece by Blue Jean Tyranny that I commissioned him for. It's from about 1994, and it's called The Drifter. And the title doesn't refer to an individual in any sense, but the drifter is actually a musical figure. It's a 12-note sequence. I don't think it's a 12-tone sequence, but it's a 12-note sequence stated at the outset in whole notes. And the rest of the piece is really it's really through composed, typical of Blue Jean, very beautiful music in segments that repeat. And the first time one plays the segment, it's just as written, and the second time you play it, the drifter figure enters again. And what happens with this figure superimposed is that it changes the meaning and changes the harmonies and the emotional quality in many cases of the underlying music. So it's just kind of interesting juxtaposition of musical elements that really changes the way you experience the basic music of the piece. I had worked with Blue Jean a bit, I guess it was in the 90s or late 80s with when Bob Ashley was touring his piece Al Aficionado, not in the form it ultimately took, but a piece in an arrangement for voices with two piano accompaniment, and Blue and I would obviously play the two pianos, so we got to know each other then. We toured to Hawaii and other places, and of course I always enjoyed his music, and it was in fact I'd heard him out when we both lived in California in the 70s, so it was just great to work with him. He's such a fantastic pianist as well as composer.
I'd like to talk a little bit about Bun Ching Lam's Canzoniere 126. That's the 126th poem in a series written by the great Petrarch, one of the earliest Renaissance poets. It was a series written to a woman who either existed in reality or was an idealization that he made up, named Laura, and he wrote all these poems to her. And this one is the central one, and it is considered one of the greatest of the Renaissance poems. Bun Ching is married to the wonderful book artist Gunnar Kaldevai, who set this Canzoniere in a beautiful artist's book with a suede cover and beautiful way of evoking the form of Italian Renaissance books, with fantastic artwork by Kyle Hovatter and set with handset type on special paper. And over the years, Bun Ching has composed many pieces that are settings of texts that Gunnar has made books from. This is a recent one from, I think, 2013. So this piece harkens back in its text to this Renaissance text, but also uses a Renaissance instrument, the therobo, which is sort of like a bass lute. It's shaped like a lute, which is the one of the forerunners to the guitar. It's it's actually its ancestor is the oud, and it was the most popular stringed instrument in Europe at that time. And the therobo is very long, 3 feet. I had the idea to ask Adam Cockerham, our therobo player, if he knew of a composer who might be willing to write him a short solo piece so you can hear the instrument used by a modern composer. And he asked his friend Kyle Hovatter, who wrote a piece called Tract 2. He had already written a piece called Tract. And again, it's using the therobo, but using it as a sound source and using it in a completely new way, and a very special way to listen to this venerable instrument. Michel mentioned that he had a piece of 3 haiku that he had set for voice, guitar, and flutes, both alto and regular flute. Michel is from Montreal, so it's a bilingual piece. 2 of the haiku that he wrote the text as well, are in French, L'œil rouge and Long cou replié. And the central piece, Turning and Turning, is in English. The next piece in our program is by the wonderful Irish composer Karen Power, whom I had the great pleasure of meeting during one of my several visits to the University of Ireland in Cork, where I've been fortunate enough to have been a guest performer and lecturer a few times.
Quack Moo Sigh is based around the word onomatopoeia. Essentially it is a kind of a celebration of language, or the sound of language, which again is something that I've been very interested in exploring through a number of different works. This piece really goes that step further in terms of imagining the possibilities of a language that was appreciated based entirely on its sonic qualities, less than its meaning. So essentially changing the entire function of a language. Tom and I have improvised together on a few occasions at this stage, and the piece is very much born from these artistic exchanges. It was written last year in the middle of a series of pieces where I've been exploring the notion of an aural score to replace that of a written or paper-based score.
She made this piece specifically using recordings of my various takes on the word onomatopoeia and its subsections, and going down to the syllable level, to the vowel level, to the consonant level, to rhythms made up of various combinations of the syllables of the words, and then she used that material to make what she calls both an oral score and an accompaniment, the second part to go with the voice. And the vocal part is up to me. Enjoying very much putting that one together. The last part of the program is devoted to two pieces by a dear friend and colleague of many, many years, Blue Jean Tyranny, performed by the wonderful pianist Joseph Kubera. We will start that section of the program with a solo piece for piano that Blue wrote specifically for Joseph, and it's called The Drifter. And finally, a new piece that Blue Jean wrote for me and Joe called Solving Scriabin's Chord. The Russian composer used a particular chord quite often in his work. And many, many people, musicologists and people who love his music, have speculated as to what the chord might mean. Blue Jean came up with his own idea, which he explains really clearly in a little short essay that accompanies the program. But essentially, it's the same 6 notes describing 3 distinct emotions, to quote from part of the text. Blue wrote the text and the music for this, and it's something that I think you'll really enjoy.